Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, you might be a little bit remiss. You might be a little bit thrown off by the fact that I am covering the game Chaos Zero Nightmare. And when it comes to this game, I've always thought that it was actually a great one. I played it a little bit on its release, and I had a great time. The only thing that kind of kept me away from the game was the fact that it seemed like it was going to take a really long time to play. A bit of a grindy one. But I think most people can agree on that. It's just something that I personally didn't feel like I had time for. But the situation that we're going to have on our screen today isn't going to be related to the gameplay, isn't going to be related to the actual game. It's going to be related to the fact that the director for Chaos Zero Nightmare was caught. Ladies and gentlemen, they were caught doing a horrible, horrifying thing. And what that thing was play Wuthering Waves. Because apparently their Steam profile actually got leaked. Somehow somebody found out that they were WuWa, as you're seeing on the screen over here. And when we look at the details, it appears that WuWa has been playing Wuthering Waves for a pretty goddamn long time. I do believe that number over here reads out to be about 123 hours. And the end result was that quite a bit of shit was talked to them during the live stream, during the chat, all of that, and a lot of criticism was unveiled for this horrifying decision that was made over here. You can also see Play the Spire on the side. Makes a bit of sense. And so this post has gone ahead and made its rounds through Reddit. And the title of this one is, Korean community caught the director playing Wuthering Waves during the live stream, and now they are pissed. And I think the first realization that most people should have from this situation is, why? In what universe does an action RPG game with real-time combat and reaction parries and all of this stuff, how would a game like this compare to Chaos Zero Nightmare? That's a turn-based game that plays extremely similarly to, let's just be honest here, Slay the fucking Spire. And just as like a baseline, right? There's really no reason at all that the two games should even be in opposition because they play in entirely different ways. One's a 2D game and the other is like a 3D game. One naturally has, I think, a little bit higher production value. I think most people would reasonably say that Wuthering Waves looks like a game that costs more and probably does cost more to operate than Chaos Zero Nightmare. But I don't think that alone is enough of a reason to have this much of a tribalistic sentiment. However, a lot of people have done a bit of investigation, a bit of digging, and pretty much come to the realization that this isn't really an issue with WuWa. This isn't an issue with the director. This is not an issue with Chaos Zero Nightmare. But it's mostly an issue with, well, the first two lines of this title over here, or the first two words of this title over here, the Korean community. And so the opening poster of this, you can already see here, KR needs to chill out. The opening poster has gone ahead and actually provided some additional context over here, and actually the source of some of these absurd statements that are being made. So they've read some of the comments from that source that I just showed over here. And so the director plays Wuthering Waves, a game revolved around the MC. That's true, right? The story revolves around Rover. Rover's the main character. Rover's making everything happen in the story. Sometimes they pass off the baton to other individuals, but Rover is like the main, is the main driving force in Wuthering Waves. But the director then does the opposite for Chaos Zero Nightmare, where the main character is just a side character. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, so this is basically bringing up the context from before, and I think one person that has a video that pretty much covers the entire situation in depth is Gotcha Smack, right? The whole, like, WTF is going on with Chaos Zero Nightmare. You see, like, Owen, one of the male characters showing up on the side of the thumbnail, and what happened was the Chaos Zero Nightmare community in KR basically lost their fucking marbles. Right? They lost their fucking marbles over the fact that the spotlight, for a brief moment in the story, was being shined on Owen instead of the MC. And the end result was that the story's going through a massive number of rewrites. Somebody got, like, laid off. The entire situation is fucking ridiculous. And it was entirely prompted by KR's reaction to the 1.0 story. So that's some of the context for why they're very upset that their game isn't more MC-centric. They flipped the fuck out in the first version before, naturally, right? I think the story had any time to develop at all. So that's what it's looking like over there. And so, because Wuthering Waves happens to be a game that does focus on the main character, the community is incredibly upset that somebody decided to have a I guess, different framing for the game that they're developing. So, ladies and gentlemen, think about it this way. What other games has the Chaos Zero Nightmare developer made? Or sorry, not made, but played. If they've ever played Minecraft, then I guess Chaos Zero Nightmare fans are now up to the critique of Minecraft is a game that has free-form exploration and free-form, creation and stuff like that. You can craft all of these things. You can get all the resources for free. Why isn't that in Chaos Zero Nightmare? When this guy plays Minecraft, you can literally just craft every single thing in the game, but I instead have to go pull on the gacha in here. Hey guys, this guy plays League of Legends. You can unlock every single character for free in that game. And the only monetization that they realistically have in the late game is skins. Why is it Chaos Zero Nightmare the exact same way? Also, League of Legends has MOBA combat. Why doesn't CZN have MOBA combat too? He plays that game as well. You can kind of see over here how the argument doesn't really make that much sense. The mere fact that the director happens to play Wuthering Waves, they're now using as a reason to bag on him because he's not making certain parts of Chaos Zero Nightmare exactly like Wuthering Waves. That's just one of the most ridiculous reasons in the first place for a community of individuals to gang up on one of its developers. It's absurd. And hopefully you guys are beginning to see the reason why. And now, there's a second point as well. Not just the fact that a game a director happened to play doesn't have all they didn't transfer those elements to CZN. The second point is that they're mocking that he played a lot of Slay the Spire, but can't make Chaos Zero Nightmare a good game like Slay the Spire. I think a lot of individuals who have had the opportunity to play Chaos Zero Nightmare, who have experience with Slay the Spire under their belt, would say that the games play very fucking similar. The games Slay the Spire and Chaos Zero Nightmare play extremely goddamn similar. And I actually played Slay the Spire when it was really early on in its release, when you only had like 2 or 3 playable characters that you could select in the roguelike mode. And when it comes to that game, ladies and gentlemen, I've got something honest to tell you. Chaos Zero Nightmare in its 1.0 version is like a more complex and more nuanced game than Slay the Spire was in its early versions. And maybe like after the development, after the DLC, maybe that's not the case, but this is something that's been ongoing for Slay the Spire for like multiple years. Like a lot of fucking years. And so again, it's just this sort of comparison over here, saying that CZN is not a good game while Slay the Spire is. I don't even know how they're even making ridiculous statements like this in the first place. It just seems wild that this claim is even being made. And the great part about all of this, or really, like first, before getting into the great part, I would kind of want to get into the worrying parts as well. I'm actually concerned that this second statement over here seems to be being echoed across the CZN community. Maybe there's something wrong with the way that I've interpreted the game. But it seems to be kind of agreed upon that CZN can't live up to Slay the Spire's standard. That it's nothing, that it's kind of like living in the shadow of that game. I feel like it's a faithful representation of the sort of like gameplay mode. I feel like it's something that has in some ways elevated on the concept. I'm actually surprised that this is the take that's coming out of the main subreddit's game. And if CZN was as sweaty as Slay the Spire, I would have dropped it immediately. I don't even think Slay the Spire is even that sweaty. It's not like its mechanics are like the most ridiculous thing ever. So again, I don't really know what's going on over here. Maybe like this crowd, maybe like the CZN crowd in particular, is just like a little bit hard to please. Not just in KR, but in global as well. So that's just something that I wanted to bring up that I thought was like a little bit interesting. And it does represent like, I guess like a little bit of a cause of concern in the community. This is weird. Like this whole sort of like argumentation, this whole sort of like dynamic over here, this shit is kind of weird. I'm gonna be honest. Now, kind of flipping the script a little bit, let's start taking a look at where I believe the community is, thankfully, reacting very positively to this sort of news. That's why I've hidden so many of the comments. Let's read some of them out. Korean community caught the director eating at McDonald's, and now they're pissed. Korean community caught the director talking to a woman, and now they're pissed, right? You can see over here that a lot of, like, the global community is not really normalizing this behavior, but they're turning it into an absolute fucking joke, which is the right thing to do. In a lot of situations, having, like, some sort of, like, hostile reaction doesn't necessarily quell the behavior that you don't like. Making fun of it and making people feel ridiculed for acting in an absurd way is actually one of the best measures, one of the best ways to get somebody to stop doing something. You know, not necessarily negative reinforcement, but making somebody feel like they're clowning on themselves for doing what they're doing. And so I think that this is the appropriate approach to have. Don't get mad at KR. Don't freak out at KR. Just make KR feel like they're being absolute clowns when they act in this way. And I'm not going to go ahead and say it's the entire Korean community doing this, but they have a very, very loud vocal minority. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the context of how certain protests are done when it comes to these gacha games in KR. People will literally send, like, trucks and, like, vehicles that have, like, messages and stuff written on the sides of them, and then, like, park them in front of, like, game HQs. It's really weird. They're very creative, but, like, that creativity is being channeled into very odd fucking things. And the sooner that they feel like doing these odd things is, like, not actually helping, hopefully the sooner that they'll actually stop. And getting ridiculed globally is, in my opinion, one of the best ways of doing that. So let's keep this sort of stuff up. Now let's keep reading. Korean community when the director is having a personal life instead of being their slave. I don't think I need to say much more about that one. Slay the Spire spotted. Yeah, a lot of enjoyers of that. I think it's good when devs play other games. It helps them understand how to be competitive. Like, if I own my own restaurant, of course I'm going to be immersed in my own stuff during my day job, but I'm also going to be dining elsewhere regularly to understand and appreciate the competition. Well, to be fair, he's appreciating the competition a lot. Yeah, 123 hours is, I'm going to be honest, in most patches, this wouldn't be that sus. But 123 hours in this patch, that's kind of sus. I'm gonna be real with you there, brother. I don't know how he's playing that much. I don't know how it's the most recently played game. I don't know how bro is sinking his teeth this much into Wuthering Waves when there's nothing to fucking do in the game. So maybe this is another additional reason for why the guy is getting flamed over in KR. He's found a way to sink that many hours into WuWa when there's nothing to do in the game. Right, so maybe that's where they're getting pissed from. This could also be based off the fact, right, that, well, this is his total playtime, and so maybe he's taking a break during this patch. All I know for certain, though, is that this displays the games in the most recent order that you played them. So Wuthering Waves was his most recently played game out of the bunches that you see over here. So that's just something to keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen. That's just something to keep in mind. But yeah, that point over there about, you know, playing the competition's game or playing competition's products, enjoying that sort of stuff so you can see and inform yourself on what's going to be better in the future. Yes, that's something that very intelligent people in the competitive business space do. But once again, these are probably unemployed gacha players that are causing all these issues in the first place. Okay, that one's just a little bit rude, so we won't read that. A man can't even do his dailies in peace anymore. Koreans, okay, well, that's a thing that happens as well, but I don't really feel like reading that one out loud. And I think this is the biggest comparison, and I think this is one of the biggest parts that makes me feel like this is a Chaos Zero Nightmare exclusive thing as opposed to a KR thing. Everybody knows that one of the games, Korean games, that happens to be kind of like a cult classic. I don't know if that's the right word to use for it. It's like not very popular in the mainstream, but it has a big niche audience. That game is Limbus Company by Project Moon, right? And apparently, while that shit was going on, that dude was playing Arknights on stream. I think it was Limbus Company, but I know maybe it's not Limbus Company, but it was like a Korean company or Korean game. But then, like, the Arknights devs, or, like, the Arknights players, and then, like, the players of this game, they were all just, like, chilling out. And I think they had, like, a collab later on. And so there wasn't any issue at all for this game, for the director or the CEO to be playing Arknights on their stream. And it was also a company that was in KR. So it was Limbus. Okay, so maybe this thing is, like, wrong over here, but it was Limbus Company. And their fan base didn't freak out from seeing Arknights on the screen. In fact, they liked it and they like asked for more, and then they had a collab, and then all the other stuff happened regarding those two games. So this is like, it's just odd that this seems to be happening for CZN specifically. And I guess it kind of really leans in a lot more into what's just potentially wrong with the CZN community as a whole. Because like we've already talked about before, they had the whole like Owen NTR, like fire the developer situation. Now they have freaking out over director having playtime in other games. I'm gonna be real over here. This just sounds exhausting. It sounds exhausting to be a developer of this game. It sounds exhausting to be somebody that's working on this game over in KR. It feels like you're walking on eggshells no matter what you do. Genuinely, it seems like you're just walking on eggshells when it comes to everything, when it comes to every interaction, to the point where your Steam profile is getting hyper analyzed by a bunch of freaks looking for any reason to critique your day job. This is ridiculous. This is absurd. And hopefully, with the coverage that you guys have gotten today, we've seen the global reaction. A little bit of it is weird when it comes to Slay the Spire, but a lot of it seems to be in support of the director. Hopefully, you've gotten the context that this seems to be another, I don't want to say one-off situation, but it just seems like a bit of a continuation of the weird sort of shit going on in KR. And hopefully, and like I said before, hopefully, CZN becomes a game that gets the fuck you money from global, the fuck you money from JP, from all of the other regions, so that they can focus more of their development, they can focus more of their feedback, instead of focusing on the region, where the feedback is dominated by those that are mentally ill. Because that's the only thing that I can assume is going on over here. They have so much feedback, so much of it is getting sent from mentally ill people, and it's probably causing a lot of hitches in their development. So, yeah, that'll be it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. CZN is not looking that good, but it's not because of the game. So, yeah, let me know what you all thought. Peace out.